You're born into a family of separatists in 16th century England. Congratulations, because this means you arrive with a target already painted on your back. Your parents whisper their prayers in locked rooms, shutters closed, voices low. Every knock at the door makes your mother flinch. Every Sunday, instead of church bells, you get silence. Because if you worship outside the king's church, you risk fines, jail, or worse. Your childhood isn't lullabies and play. It's poverty, fear, and suspicion. Neighbors look at your family like you're traitors. Priests thunder about hellfire. Soldiers drag men off for less. You grow up learning that faith is both your shield and your prison. When you're small, you don't understand why. You just know there's never enough bread on the table, and your parents always talk about somewhere else, a place where they can worship freely, a place where no one spits when you walk by. A few years pass, and now you're 17, old enough to understand desperation. You work as a farmhand now, but the pay isn't good. You still had to pay a tax to the Church of England, and most importantly, you still can't worship publicly. Bummer. You hear about a company, the Virginia Company, promising to take people to a new world across the ocean. They call it both Virginia and Promised Land. Rich soil, endless game, freedom to worship. You're skeptical. You've seen enough hungry nights and broken promises to know better. But the allure of being able to worship freely and not pay tax to the church is tempting, especially since your parents' eyes burn with hope. The kind of hope that doesn't take no for an answer. The deal is simple. You go, you labor, and maybe, just maybe, you'll get land and freedom at the end of it. So you pack what little you own. You step aboard the Mayflower, a wine cargo ship that smells of stale barrels and rats, not salvation. The stench of old alcohol and unwashed bodies hits you like prophecy. There's no turning back. England is behind you. Your promised land is ahead. And your fate is sealed somewhere in between, probably at the bottom of the ocean. The ship feels a lot like a coffin, because the Mayflower wasn't built for passengers. It was built for barrels of wine. Now it carries 102 poor souls, excluding ship crew, crammed into a dark, reeking hold. No windows, no air, just damp straw, leaking timbers, and the stench of too many bodies packed too tight. Every wave makes the wood groan. Every storm makes you wonder if the Speedwell, the ship that sprung leaks and returned to England, wasn't a warning you ignored. What if this ship is no better? What if you sink halfway? Paranoia soon becomes your best friend. The days blur. Seasickness sweeps the decks. Men and women vomiting into buckets, chamber pots sloshing over, children crying in the dark. The smell is so thick it clings to your skin. Food doesn't help. After all, how much good can salted meat writhing with maggots do? You eat biscuits so hard they break your teeth. The water has gone brackish, and beer has turned sour. So you gag, swallow, and pray. In the ship's hold, sickness spreads faster than hope. Scurvy, typhus, dysentery. You get scurvy. It causes you to be fatigued and your gums to bleed. But you survive. One guy once had all three at once. He survived against all odds. Another time he falls overboard, but by some miracle grabs a rope and is dragged back aboard, soaked and gasping. Some people say he's a reincarnated saint. You say his luck has run out. Later on, you find out his name is John Howland. And then, just when you thought there will be no more miracles, a birth. A baby born into this floating hell. His first cries echo in the dark hold. A cruel joke. New life in a place where death is never far away. They name him Oceanus Hopkins. And it seems he is just the first ray of sunshine to come, because not too long later one morning, someone shouts, "Land." 66 days. That's how long you lived in hell, rocking between prayers and vomit, storms and silence. You stumble on deck, eyes watering from the sudden light. heart pounding. The cheers erupt, hoarse, desperate, triumphant. But the joy doesn't last, because there are rumors that this isn't Virginia, the warm, fertile land you were promised. You've landed far north. No shelters, no crops waiting, just winter's teeth already sinking in. Land at last. You thought the sight of it would feel like salvation. Instead, it feels like a mistake. Because this is Cape Cod in November of 1620. The wind cuts like knives, the trees are bare, and snow is already dusting the ground. Congratulations, you've traded seasickness for frostbite. There's no welcoming party, no supply chain waiting, just wilderness. Forest you don't know, animals you can't hunt, and soil you can't touch because it's frozen solid. The Mayflower sits behind you, creaking like it knows you'll have to crawl back on board to survive the winter. But like always, before anything else, there's politics. The same politics that made you sail across half the world. The problem here is that half the passengers weren't even supposed to come here. They aren't separatists like you, just strangers looking for land and profit. Tempers flare, threats get muttered. So in the ship's cramped cabin, men gather to scratch their names onto a paper. The Mayflower Compact. That's what they call it. Not a constitution, not a miracle, just a survival pact. Obey the group or die even faster. And just like that, exploration begins. You climb with others into a shallop, a small boat meant for calm waters, not the icy Atlantic. You row through freezing spray, clothes soaked, hands blistered, teeth chattering. On land, you stumble through snow and thorns, scavenging whatever you can. Caches of corn buried by native tribes, snatching scraps of food like thieves. Sometimes you hear movement in the trees. Once, arrows whistled past your head. So much for the new world. It already wants you dead. Still, you start building, because winter is coming, and it's coming fast. The first common house goes up, walls of timber, roof of thatch. It is going to serve as a hostel for everyone before individual homes are built. It burns down. So you build again. Day after day, you drag logs through the snow, fever burning in your chest, stomach growling with hunger. And every swing of the axe feels like it could be your last. Winter comes like a thief in the night. Maybe that's the devil? But either way, they both aim to kill and destroy the colony. The snow buries the common house. The wind howls through every crack, and your thin blanket feels more like a shroud. Your clothes never truly dry, and you wake up each morning damp, shivering, and older than the night before. The food is worse than the cold. What little you brought from England is already spoiled. Salted meat? Still crawling with maggots. Biscuits? Still as hard as rocks. And the beer? Even more sour. You once tried hunting, but it was useless. You don't know the woods, and the animals are scarce anyway. Now your belly aches so badly, you can't tell hunger from sickness. And talking about sickness, it's everywhere. Pneumonia grips your lungs until every cough feels like broken glass. Scurvy blackens your gums, loosens your teeth. Dysentery keeps you weak, tied to your bed, if you can even call a pile of damp straw a bed. Tuberculosis picks off the strongest, like it enjoys the irony. The colony collapses in slow motion. Sometimes 2 or 3 people die in a single night. At one point, only 7 people are strong enough to care for the rest, feeding, burying, praying, weeping. And the most surprising thing is, John Howland was one of them. He never got sick during the winter. Not once. Burials are done in secret. Graves are dug at night, marked without stones, so the nearby tribes won't see how weak you've become. You see children cry themselves to sleep, but more and more of them wake to silence. No mother, No father. Just cold air and stranger's pity. And then there are some of them who don't even wake up at all. You say prayers in the darkness, but God does not answer. So despair starts to set in. You realize this place isn't a promised land. It's a graveyard. And the only question left is whether the grave will claim you next. But congratulations, you've made it through winter. Though, made it feels generous. You're a scarecrow now. Ribs sharp, skin sallow, eyes hollow from watching too many graves fill. And just when you least expect it, the impossible happens. A tall man walks straight into your settlement. Not a soldier, not an angel, but a native. He raises his hand and in perfect, broken English says, "Welcome, Englishmen." The world tilts. You've buried half your people, and now here is someone who speaks your tongue. His name is Samoset, and he learned English from fishermen. He doesn't come to kill you. He comes to talk. A few days later, he returns with another man, Squanto, and Squanto changes everything. He shows you how to survive this cursed land, how to plant corn with fish as fertilizer, how to find eels in the mud, how to catch fish in rivers that once almost killed you. You hear he's been to England before, stolen and enslaved, then returned. Now somehow, he's your lifeline. A few months later, an alliance is struck with Massasoit, leader of the Wampanoag, a nearby native tribe. Handshakes, gifts, words of peace. But the air is still heavy with fear. Every glance could turn to betrayal. Every shadow could hide an ambush. Still, for the first time in months, food grows where graves once did. Green shoots push up from the soil, and you feel a flicker of something you thought you'd buried. Hope. In April 1621, the Mayflower weighs anchor and sails for England. The only thing of yours on it is a letter to your family, telling them you're doing well. Its masts vanish over the horizon, and with it, your last chance of going back. But no one leaves. Not one. Not because life here is good, but because you've lost too much to quit now. You're too far gone, too committed, too hopeless. This isn't escape anymore. This is survival. You go back to the colony. You go back to the fields. And somehow, against all odds, there's food on the table. Corn that actually grew. Squash that didn't rot. Fish and game enough to fill more than an empty bowl. And you didn't do it alone. You'd be bones in an unmarked grave without Squanto's lessons, without Massasoit's uneasy alliance. So when the Wampanoag arrive, not 10, not 20, but 90 of them, you grit your teeth and smile. This is less celebration and more political insurance policy. But no one dares call it that. Instead, you call it a feast. 3 days of eating, trading, watching. Venison roasted over fires, wild fowl piled high, cornbread baked from kernels you planted with shaking hands. It isn't the turkey and pie fantasy people will one day invent. It's survival food, shared with people you barely trust. Still, for a moment, it feels like victory. You laugh when you shouldn't. You notice little Oceanus, the baby born on the Mayflower, wobbling on unsteady legs. Somehow, impossibly, he lived through the winter when so many stronger bodies didn't. And John Howland, the fool who fell overboard, he works with a grin like he's never tired, like death itself couldn't drag him under. At this point, you believe so too. The fires crackle. Children chase each other in the clearing. For the first time in a year, you taste something like warmth. Maybe even hope. But you know better. This isn't peace. This isn't safety. This is a brief, borrowed pause before winter tightens its grip again. You smile with the others, raise your cup, and chew your meat. But in the back of your mind, one thought lingers. The feast is short, and the hunger always comes back. The feast ends, the fires die down, and reality returns. Your belly is full, but the pit in your chest remains, because you know what's coming. And you're right. No supply ships line up at your shore. Some do come, eventually, but never enough. Never on time. Famine gnaws every winter. Disease stalks the colony like smoke that won't clear. The Wampanoag Alliance holds for now, but you hear whispers from Virginia in 1622. Settlers butchered in their homes. You look at your neighbors, at your makeshift palisades, and you wonder how long before the same happens here. You realize that peace is just an illusion, one as fragile as your corn crop. And even with all these, the death toll never stops. The graves multiply, carved in the frozen ground. Children die before they can walk. Strong men collapse in the fields. Women waste away with fevers you can't name. Only watch. Even Oceanus dies in 1627. You don't talk about it, but everyone knows. If you live past 30, you're old here. And even then, you'll carry a body broken by hunger, cold, and grief. You remind yourself, you came here for freedom. Freedom to worship without fear. And yes, you can sing your psalms now without the king's soldiers dragging you off. But it cost you half your community. And the memories of those secret prayers whispered in England feels almost kinder than this graveyard of this promised land. Years later, people tell a different story. A myth of cheerful pilgrims, friendly natives, and a happy first Thanksgiving. They forget the maggots in the meat, the corpses buried at night, the children crying for bread that never came. They cover your suffering with paintings of smiling men in buckled hats. And you're long gone. Bones in the soil of a land that never wanted you. But hey, at least you got freedom.